One of the most misunderstood things about narcissistic people is the belief that they simply do not care. Many people assume that when a narcissistic woman hurts you, whether through betrayal, emotional neglect, psychological manipulation, or calculated cruelty, she walks away untouched, that she sleeps peacefully at night while you are left confused, questioning yourself, or drowning in emotional pain. This idea may feel comforting because it creates a clear villain and a clear ending. But the reality is far more complex. What actually happens beneath the surface is not emotional emptiness, but something much more unsettling. And understanding this truth can completely change the way you see what you went through and how you begin to heal from it. She is not emotionless after hurting you. A narcissistic woman does not walk away feeling nothing after she hurts you. What you see on the surface can be very misleading. The calm face, the silence, or the quick move on can make it seem like nothing affected her. In reality, there is emotional activity inside, but it is not directed toward understanding you or repairing the damage. Everything turns inward, toward protecting herself. After the hurt happens, her thoughts revolve around how the situation impacts her sense of control. She may feel irritated that you spoke up. She may feel uncomfortable that you noticed the manipulation. She may feel angry that you did not accept the blame or move on quietly. These reactions are emotional, but they are centered on her experience, not yours. What she does not do is pause to consider how deeply this affected you. She does not sit with the weight of your confusion, sadness, or loss. Doing so would require her to admit that her actions caused harm. For someone with narcissistic traits, that admission feels dangerous. It threatens the image she needs to maintain to feel stable. This is why you often see emotional withdrawal instead of accountability. Silence becomes a shield. Distance becomes a way to avoid facing consequences. She may convince herself that you are overreacting or that the situation was justified. These thoughts help her stay emotionally protected, even if they leave you feeling erased. From your side, this creates a painful imbalance. You are left processing everything alone, while she appears untouched. That can make you question your reality. It can make you wonder if your pain mattered at all. But her lack of response is not proof that nothing happened. It is proof that she cannot engage with emotional responsibility in a healthy way. It is important to understand this clearly. Her emotional shutdown is not strength, and it is not confidence. It is avoidance. It comes from an inability to face guilt, vulnerability, or self-reflection without falling apart inside. You did not imagine the connection, and you did not exaggerate the hurt. What you experienced was real, even if she could not face it. Beneath her behavior is deep shame and insecurity. Underneath everything you saw on the surface, there is a deep sense of shame that a narcissistic woman works very hard to hide. This shame is not obvious. It does not show up as humility or self-reflection. It stays buried and protected. She may appear confident, emotional, charming, or even fragile, but all of that is built to cover an inner feeling of not being enough. This insecurity often comes from long before you entered her life. It is not something you caused. It is a long-standing fear of being unimportant, replaceable, or exposed as flawed. When that fear gets touched, even slightly, it creates intense discomfort inside her. Instead of dealing with that discomfort, she reacts outward. When you expressed hurt, confusion, or a need for clarity, it may have triggered that shame, not because you were wrong, but because your honesty challenged the image she needs to protect. Facing your feelings would have required her to face her own behavior. That moment feels threatening to someone who depends on control to feel safe. So rather than turning inward, she turns against you. She may become defensive, dismissive, or emotionally overwhelming. Sometimes she presents herself as the one who is hurt. Sometimes she shifts blame subtly. These reactions are not about resolving the issue. They are about avoiding the internal collapse that shame brings for her. This is why the situation often feels so unbalanced. You are trying to communicate and understand. She is trying to survive emotionally without looking at herself. That gap creates confusion and pain, especially for someone who leads with empathy. Understanding this does not make what happened acceptable, but it helps you see that her behavior came from weakness, not from your lack of value. Kindness and coldness can both be tools. A narcissistic woman does not stay in one emotional mode. One moment, she can be warm, attentive, and emotionally open. The next moment, she can become distant, quiet, or emotionally unavailable. This shift often feels sudden to you, and it can be deeply confusing. What makes it harder is that both sides can feel real when you are inside the connection. Kind behavior often appears when she senses distance or loss of attention. Affection, apologies, or emotional closeness may show up just when you are pulling away or starting to question things. This softness is not about repair or understanding. It is about pulling you back into emotional engagement and restoring her sense of connection and influence. Cold behavior usually appears after you express hurt, set a boundary, or ask for clarity. Silence, withdrawal, or emotional shutdown becomes a response. This creates discomfort for you. You may feel anxious, rejected, or eager to fix things. Over time, this teaches you that speaking up leads to emotional loss, which keeps you quieter and more compliant. These emotional shifts are not random. They are patterns that develop over time. A narcissistic woman learns what reactions work. If warmth brings you closer and distance makes you chase clarity, both behaviors become useful. They help her stay in control without having to explain herself or take responsibility for harm. For you, this creates emotional instability. You may start focusing on reading her mood instead of listening to your own needs. You may spend energy trying to earn the warm version of her again. This pulls attention away from what actually matters, which is how you are being treated overall, not just in brief moments. Understanding this pattern is important because it helps break the cycle. Kindness, followed by coldness, is not emotional depth. It is a system of reinforcement. Seeing it clearly allows you to stop personalizing the shifts and start recognizing the behavior as a form of control, not a reflection of your worth or effort. Guilt is twisted into emotional manipulation. A narcissistic woman does experience guilt, but it does not function in a healthy or constructive way. Instead of guilt leading to accountability, it quickly turns into discomfort she wants to escape. That discomfort becomes something she needs to offload. Rather than sitting with it, she looks for a way to make it disappear, and the easiest way is to shift it onto you. This is often when the focus changes without warning. What began as a conversation about how you were hurt slowly turns into a conversation about how bad she feels. Her emotional state takes over the space. Your experience fades into the background. Without realizing it, You may find yourself comforting her, explaining yourself, or minimizing your own pain, just to calm things down. Over time, this pattern trains you to associate honesty with emotional consequences. You learn that expressing hurt leads to her distress, which then becomes your responsibility. This can make you hesitate to speak up. You may start choosing silence over clarity, because silence feels easier than dealing with the emotional fallout that follows. In some moments, she may appear genuinely overwhelmed. Tears, frustration, or emotional exhaustion can seem real. But the outcome stays the same. Responsibility never settles where it belongs. The situation ends without repair, without change, and without acknowledgement of the harm done to you. This creates a slow erosion of your emotional boundaries. You may begin apologizing for things that were reasonable to feel. You may start doubting whether your needs are valid at all. Guilt no longer reflects behavior. It becomes a tool that keeps you focused on her emotional state instead of your own well-being. Recognizing this pattern is important because it helps you reclaim clarity. Feeling empathy does not mean accepting misplaced blame. Caring about someone's emotions does not require ignoring your own pain. Guilt that moves responsibility away from harm is not connection. It is control disguised as emotional intensity. Her greatest fear is losing emotional influence over you. For a narcissistic woman, control rarely looks aggressive on the surface. It often exists in emotional closeness and constant interaction. As long as you were reacting, explaining, or trying to fix things, she felt grounded. Your emotional energy reassured her that she still mattered and still had a place in your inner world. Your reactions played an important role. When you defended yourself, tried to clarify misunderstandings, or stayed emotionally available, it confirmed her importance. Even conflict kept the connection alive. Strong emotions, whether positive or negative, signaled that she still had access to you. That access is what made her feel secure. When your behavior changed, the dynamic shifted. Becoming calmer, less reactive, or more focused on yourself reduced that emotional access. You may not have said anything different, but your energy did. That shift can feel unsettling to her because it removes the emotional feedback she relied on to feel in control. This is where fear starts to show, even if it is hidden. The fear is not about losing you as a person. It is about losing the influence she once had over your emotions. Without your reactions, she loses the ability to regulate how she feels through you. That loss can feel destabilizing. In response, her behavior may intensify or shut down completely. She may try harder to provoke emotion, create tension, or pull you back into engagement. Or she may detach suddenly, acting distant or indifferent. Both responses serve the same purpose, which is to regain emotional balance without self-reflection. Understanding this helps you stop taking the shifts personally. Your calm is not cruelty. Your independence is not abandonment. It is a natural response to emotional strain. When you reclaim your emotional space, you are not causing harm. You are stepping out of a dynamic that depended on your reactions to survive. She is threatened by your emotional strength. Your emotional stability was never the problem. Being calm, thoughtful, and self-aware may have seemed normal to you, but to a narcissistic woman, those traits can feel unsettling. She often depends on external reassurance to stay emotionally balanced. When you were able to regulate yourself without constant validation, it quietly challenged the way she relates to emotions. Your empathy also played a role. You were likely willing to listen, reflect, and take responsibility when something went wrong. That level of emotional maturity creates contrast. It highlights her inability to do the same. Instead of feeling inspired by your strength, she may have felt exposed by it. That exposure can feel threatening to someone who avoids self-examination. This is often when subtle shifts in behavior appear. Compliments may turn into backhanded remarks. Support may turn into quiet dismissal. She may question your confidence, your memory, or your intentions. These moments are rarely direct. They are small, easy to miss, and often leave you wondering if you imagined them. Over time, these small comments can have a real impact. You may start second-guessing your instincts. You may feel pressure to tone yourself down or explain yourself more. This is not because you became weaker. It is because the environment slowly worked against your sense of self. A narcissistic woman may also feel threatened when you stop depending on her emotionally. When you process feelings on your own or seek clarity without chaos, it reduces her role. That reduction can feel like a loss of importance. Instead of adjusting, she may attempt to pull you back into emotional confusion. It is important to understand that your emotional strength was not a flaw that needed fixing. It was a mirror showing her what she avoided developing. Her reactions were not proof that you were too much or too independent. They were signs that your growth no longer fit into a dynamic built on imbalance. What she fears most is you moving on, emotionally. What scares a narcissistic woman the most is not you leaving the relationship on paper. It is you emotionally letting go. When your thoughts are no longer centered on her reactions, moods, or approval, something shifts. Emotional detachment removes the connection she relied on to feel relevant and powerful in your inner world. When you stop explaining yourself, the dynamic changes. Explaining kept you engaged and emotionally available. It gave her access to your thoughts and feelings. Once that stops, there is no longer a place for her to redirect blame or reshape the story. Silence from your side is not weakness. It is the end of emotional negotiation. Not needing closure is another turning point. Closure often keeps you tied to the past, waiting for understanding that may never come. When you stop chasing answers from her, you stop feeding the cycle. That independence signals that her version of events no longer defines your reality. That loss of influence is deeply uncomfortable for her. Your healing also removes a role she depended on you to play. You may have been the listener, the stabilizer, or the one who absorbed emotional tension. When you step out of that role, she is left alone with her own emotions. There is no buffer. There is no distraction. That internal silence is something she avoids. This can explain why her behavior sometimes changes when you detach. She may try to reappear, provoke a reaction, or rewrite the past. Or she may disappear entirely. Both responses come from the same place. Your emotional independence makes it impossible for her to maintain the same dynamic. Your growth is not about proving anything to her. It is about reclaiming your energy and attention. Moving on emotionally means you are no longer available for confusion or control. That shift is powerful. It marks the moment you stop surviving the experience and start living beyond it. Where your power truly lives. If confusion, guilt, or self-doubt still show up for you, that does not mean you failed. It means you stayed open in a situation that was not safe for openness. Many people in your position question themselves because they cared, and tried to understand. That response is human. It does not mean you were weak or naive. It means you were emotionally present in something that did not return the same care. What happened was not caused by a lack of value on your side. It happened because your emotional depth existed in a dynamic that could not respect it. You brought honesty, effort, and awareness into a situation built around avoidance and control. That mismatch creates pain. It does not reduce your worth. It explains why things felt so draining and why clarity took time. You are allowed to heal at your own pace. You do not need permission to move forward. You do not owe explanations to anyone who dismissed your feelings. Trusting yourself again may feel uncomfortable at first, but it is necessary. Each step you take toward emotional independence brings stability back into your life. This video is here to remind you that clarity is not coldness. Distance is not cruelty. Choosing yourself does not make you selfish. Your future does not have to be shaped by someone who could not meet you with honesty, consistency, or care. You get to decide what comes next, and that decision already shows strength. And as always, because YouTube's algorithm tends to favor videos with strong engagement, if you feel this video has brought you value, a simple like and a quick subscribe would mean so much. It not only helps this message reach more people who need it, but also ensures you will never miss the next video that could make a difference in your journey. Thanks all